So everyone, Doom Patrol episode 6, the Doom Patrol. It was a really cool episode. Through Mr. Nobody's attempts to kind of put off the current Doom Patrol, if you will, from stopping him, he showed them the kind of tragic kind of origin to Niles Calder's original Doom Patrol. So let's break this episode down because it's a really good one. How's it going, Doom Patrollers? Welcome to a brand new Doom Patrol breakdown and review. So episode 6, Doom Patrol, because as we know, each episode is some kind of patrol, like Paw Patrol and whatever other patrols we've had in previous episodes. I really enjoyed this episode. Now, normally, I wouldn't say normally, but so far, usually each episode, has had quite a bit of focus on one character, and I would want to say that this is Rita's episode, but it wasn't. Well, I suppose it was. I mean, out of all the other episodes we've had, like a Larry kind of mainly focused episode, I guess you could argue this was Rita's. And as I said towards the beginning of this season, I expect the same thing for each character. But that doesn't mean what I love about Doom Patrol so much is that even though it can still focus on one character, or you could argue that this is a character's episode through the focus of it, it still gives so much development to all the other storylines and all the other characters each and every time that it's literally applause-worthy, like for every single episode they do. And I don't want to sound like a fanboy. I seriously feel like 6 episodes in, I can say the same stuff I said in the first 1 and 2 episodes. It's such a good show, and they're handling everything and development and story so well. So let's dive straight into this review, guys. Sorry, I just thought of the animal, vegetable, mineral man, and he was in this episode. But yeah, before we break this down, subscribe if you want to see more Doom Patrol videos just like this, and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. Might be a bit of a longer breakdown today because, yeah, 55+ minute episodes are pretty long and there's so much stuff. And there's quite a few Easter eggs in this one as well, including, I'm pretty sure, Wonder Woman's sword. But we'll get to that. So yeah, just a second ago in this kind of intro, I said how it was more like Rita's episode, and the very beginning of the episode started off with Rita post-accident, if you will, where it was a flashback to 1956 LA. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but you guys know what I mean if you've seen the flipping episode. That is when Rita's kind of powers kind of started doing their thing, and that's when she became a big blob and suffocated him. So yeah, this episode was very consistent with Rita flashbacks, and what I really liked about learning more about her, especially by the end of this episode, is that she's shedding this kind of very vain personality that she's got. I really like Rita, but obviously she's had flaws, like being really up herself, very rude, thinking just so highly of herself, essentially. And I think we all knew this was coming, that we knew she'd become a better person, and by the end of the episode, they really did that. But I really like how they tied her to the previous Doom Patrol as well with her relationship with Mento, but we'll get a bit more onto that in a little bit. But I want to talk about Robot Man. Robot Man, this is what I mean by the development consistently through each and every episode. Every character, if it's not mega focused on them, they still get a little bit, is wanting to look up his daughter, because that's been a seed since day one, man. Like literally, he's been wanting to somehow reconnect. He's been very hesitant on doing it because he's flipping brain in a metal kind of box, so to speak. And yeah, it was all about this episode with him trying to get Cyborg to create him a profile on, like, I don't know, it's their version of Facebook or whatever, so we can just get an insight into her life a bit more. But whilst we're on the topic of Cyborg, there was a lot to do with him this episode as well, but Robot Man is kind of intertwined with his story this episode, so we will focus on both things at once here. So Cyborg kind of like warns his father, and I found this pretty cool. At the same time, they did another kind of Justice League of America drop, and how Mr. Nobody should really be on the JLO watch list, because he mentioned the Brotherhood of Evil as well, and Mr. Nobody's a part of that, and we got more Brotherhood of Evil drops throughout this episode as well, with a certain brain, but we'll get to that. But Silas Stone was just pretty sure that if they mattered, or the Brotherhood of Evil mattered, like the Justice League would know about them. But if there's one thing we know about Victor and his father Silas, is that their relationship is pretty rocky. Cyborg's father, Victor's father, Silas, is very, wanting the best for his son, almost too much so. So that's always been their relationship. Privacy mode has always been disabled, kind of thing. And this episode he needed to be rebooted, but Cyborg is basically by this time kind of cottoned on to the fact that his father, what if he's doing some other things? And we'll get to that as well. I also found it very interesting in how Silas said to Robot Man, when Robot Man asked if he kind of upgraded him to, Robot Man, would he be like Cyborg? And Silas like straight away said, no, you would have been better, which is a very weird way of putting it, and a very interesting concept to imagine Robot Man kind of more like Cyborg. But the most important kind of revelation that came out of this was Silas Stone's revelation that he should be better to Cyborg, because Robot Man kicked him up the ass in terms of how he treats Victor. He essentially says he shouldn't be so hard on him, and if anything, what Victor's doing at Doom Manor and what he did last episode was very noble. And all Silas really does throughout the season so far is kind of shit on Cyborg and put him down. So it was really nice to see that, and also the resolution to this storyline this episode where Cyborg even hugged his dad, and how his dad said privacy mode is now disabled, or enabled, should I say. But the hug, I thought that was nice, but then we found out he took the USB stick that he was using to kind of reboot Cyborg. And this was quite an interesting thing because we didn't see exactly what was on that USB stick towards the end of the episode, but we knew that Cyborg was hacking into it to kind of find out what Silas was up to, exactly what he does when he tweaks him. And throughout the episode as well, like he was kind of saying, you can't leave me alone with my dad when he's rebooting me. Can you kind of keep an eye on it? So he's kind of really insecure. Like things are kind of patched up and things have kind of moved forward with Silas's relationship, especially on Silas's side with his son. But now it's kind of reversed in how Cyborg is looking into his father a bit more. So I can't wait to see where that goes. Now on to the main bulk of the episode with the actual original Doom Patrol. We got that introduction through Crazy Jane looking at recordings of herself as Baby Doll with the Chief. I really like Chief's relationship with Baby Doll, and just Jane in general. Like they have a really special kind of relationship in this show. And you could clearly see that Baby Doll was really attached to the Chief, and Jane was really getting feelsy over this. And this just reminds us all that Jane, as she's mentioned before, really likes having all of these personalities and she wants to look after them, whereas your kind of most people's instant assumption would be you would want that fixed. But anyway, Chief was going to meet his new friends, which is why Baby Doll was upset, and this segued us into the Doom Patrol, and obviously that sprung Jane's mind because Mr. Nobody set Jane up to find a Doom Patrol at the end of last episode, if you remember, and it's just convenient that she happened to look at that recording where, yeah, you get what I mean. But anyway, now the whole point behind this, and we'll revisit this maybe a little bit later, and I've said this episodes and episodes ago, that, and they've pointed this out, that's why I said it, like, Mr. Nobody does feel threatened by the Doom Patrol, and he set up this whole thing with Crazy Jane in the past, go look for the Doom Patrol when all of this crap is out the way, because through seeing what happened to them, the really kind of tragic ending, especially how they started off as quite a badass force of Chiefs, is really, really, something to think about. Like, holy crap, if we face Mr. Nobody like they did, will we end up just like him? And they did a really good job this episode of showing their adventure, this original Doom Patrol's adventure, but also not everything is as it seems throughout the episode, because it was all essentially presented as this almost like, like in X-Men, you have Charles Xavier's school for the gifted youngsters, whatever it's called, the mutant school essentially. This was very much so like that. But that's where we met Joshua Clay, who seems to be like the guy kind of keeping it all together, like keep looking after the original Doom Patrol members. Now, Joshua Clay, in case some of you guys didn't already know, he was one of the several people to hold the title of the Tempest. He has been in the Doom Patrol as well. Now, what I'm interested in is more that if he will join the current Doom Patrol, maybe in a future season. We've only got 15 episodes. I don't know if he would join this season, but either way, the way they served him was kind of quite inconspicuous this episode. So I feel like there's quite a bit more to him that the show wants to do. But we're gonna have to wait and see there. And this is where I can segue back to the Rita, focus of this episode, because what we learned is that, through a past recording of Niles trying to help out Rita with her, issue of like melting all the time, he recommended Mento. Now, this was back in freaking 1958, I believe, because the first flashback was 56. But essentially, Mento can help because he can use his psychic abilities, via reading minds. And the way they essentially put it is that Rita can transcend the emotional obstacles that essentially make her issues apparent. It's psychological just as much it is as physiological. I can't talk today. So we see these scenes between Mento when he was younger with Rita, and we see that him help her in this mindscape. That works. It even gets romantic. However, we also saw flashbacks to where it kind of ended between them because Mento read Rita's mind, and he kind of just abandoned her. And it's because he read her mind and he saw that he essentially caused Mary Beth to commit suicide. That's something that plagues Rita, and in this episode we learned that Mento was essentially holding up this group delusion, that because there is no school, there is nothing like that, and that's how they are able to kind of control their powers, because after what happened in a battle with Mr. Nobody, they essentially went insane, and I'll talk about that battle in a second because that seems pretty cool, and it really does highlight Mr. Nobody's core kind of, or should I say prime abilities, that is to drive the sanity out of people. But I like the way how the doctor, well, he's not even a doctor, but Joshua Clay was looking after them in this group delusion thing through using Mento's mind abilities to make it seem like everything is in the glory days, if you will. And that's what makes this episode so much more tragic at the same time, because you really feel for these people. But what I did like about the young version of Mento, for example, when he was going in that trophy room, or that's what Rita called it, because that's what it was, like the trophy room of what the first Doom Patrol, I guess, have collected throughout their adventures. So there was this reference to Ultimax, is kind of container, if you will, for the brain, and Ultimax is like the leader of the Brotherhood of Evil. Now he said the brain escaped, which is funny to imagine, but he doesn't have his helmet. Now the interesting thing about this is I feel like there's going to be a setup to potentially Ultimax in a future season, because they're really focusing on Mr. Nobody this season, and it'd be quite surprising to me, even though Ultimax is a big deal, if they somehow swapped it over to where he was orchestrating Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody's so egotistical that I think as we all know, he feels like godlike. So I don't think they would make Ultimax his leader in this season. We'll have to wait and see there, but that in cool little Easter egg anyway. In fact that he's escaped means he will pop up again one day, I'm sure. But also, if you're looking at the screenshot on screen right now, we also saw Wonder Woman's sword. Now that's really confusing. I don't know how this works. It's why doesn't Wonder Woman have it? Did she get another one? Is this just one of them? Because yeah, trust me, Google it. That is a rendition, if you will, of Wonder Woman's sword. So the Doom Patrol were a kick-ass team, to be honest. They really, really were. And we saw the flashback though of their final, or should I say their first encounter with Mr. Nobody, and that was the end of them, unfortunately. And this is the whole purpose of this episode and this task for Crazy Jane from Mr. Nobody, is to put them off, as I've already said. So Mr. Nobody was essentially sending this freaking butt kind of balloon attached to a jukebox, and the jukebox in the park turned everyone insane. But this is really, really messed up. It's funny, but then when he explains it even further, it's oh my god, could you actually imagine this? So what happened is that he turned the police into piñatas, and then everyone who was insane in that park, including women and children and everybody, were beating those piñatas, those police officers, to death, and there was candy inside, red candy, and they were all eating the candy. They were, and you literally see the blood running down this kid's face or something. It's just really messed up and complete insane idea of Mr. Nobody's, and that sums up Mr. Nobody in a nutshell. And I'm glad they actually demonstrated the fact that he can turn people insane, because I was expecting that towards the beginning of this season, but instead he created this massive reality manipulation kind of thing, which I didn't expect, as a just said. Now, when everything was going awry in the episode, through Mento's, kind of delusional reality manipulation of the school, if you will, I found it very interesting when Jane was getting chased, because he was turning everyone's fears against them. So this, for example, for Jane, included her running away down that hall. A load of puzzle pieces were coming out of nowhere, and you heard this creepy ass voice from this guy saying something baby, just creepy ass shit that I don't even want to say, to be honest. And I'm pretty sure this is a flashback to freaking Kay's childhood. Now, you saw Kay in the previous episode, Kay Chalice, who is basically Jane's most protected original personality. Jane, as I said, if I remember correctly, isn't even the original. It's the first splintered off personality, who's kind of become the prominent personality of Jane, if you will, but it really starts with Kay, and she was abused when she was just a little girl, and that's why she was getting freaked out by that guy, his hand just coming out all of that, but we're gonna learn more about this throughout the season. But that was essentially the gist of everything with what happened in that school, if you will, or should I say care home, to be honest. It's just so sad to see how they ended up. But one thing that Jane did learn that kind of crushed her, that I'm sure we're gonna, you know, see what happens with this, is that she learned that Niles essentially abandoned them like broken toys. And for example, Jane was gonna be sent there originally, so she's now like questioning, like, does he view me as like this broken lost cause, like one of Niles Calder's experiments, if you will, people that he can't exactly help, like he has with Robot Man and Negative. I mean, they're not fully helped, but you know what I mean. In Chief's mind, maybe he was giving up on Crazy Jane and was going to send her there. So yeah, that's definitely complicated things with Jane now, and I can't wait to see where that goes. And then, of course, by the end of the episode, we had Cyborg having created a profile, and he can now view his daughter's life, but he is not happy at all when he learns out that her stepfather is Bump. Is that the original guy from the first episode who was, you know, kind of seeing his wife? I can't remember exactly, but either way, he's not happy with that. But, you know, I'm sure this is just going to egg Robot Man on to take the next step to connect with his daughter. So yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see where that goes, but it's still really good development for all these other characters, as I said in this episode. But yeah, let's talk about Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. That was freaking hilarious. That's like the best scene of something, the most funniest scene I've seen in ages. I know that sounds so random to say right at the end of the review, but like the world of what basically, we're covering this news story and how an Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man has been attacked by his own dinosaur in a robbery gone wrong. It was just so funny. And when they were going through the charges that had been pressed against them, like the dinosaur had been charged with aiding and abetting. I don't know. It's really like cheesy, but it was so funny to see this. And I really hope they continue doing Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man jokes throughout this season. I hope they don't give it up. But that was mainly the episode, guys. So I really enjoyed it, as you could probably tell. It was just as good as I feel like any other episode of Doom Patrol, but a bit more feelsy, very character development focused, I feel, especially through visiting the old OG Doom Patrol. But let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, as always. Do you agree with anything I said? Are you excited for anything in the future that happened, you know, in this episode, or was like teased or foreshadowed, like as I said with Brain, or should I say Ultimax, and other things like that. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Like the video if you did enjoy it, especially if you got this far. Subscribe for more Doom Patrol videos like this. Links as always are in the description down below. Discord, talk with me directly, Twitter, everything like that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Doom Patrollers in the next video. Goodbye.